A man is trapped in a game played by a girl, but unexpectedly, the situation turns out differently than what the girl had anticipated. To understand this situation, it's important to know that the man's name is Naoto. Naoto is a simple boy, lacking emotional intelligence and weak in self-defense. His only pleasures are reading and drawing. On that day, Naoto arrived at the library and found a group of girls there. Having never experienced affection from a woman before, Naoto was confused about what to do, so he just sat quietly, waiting for his nightmare to end. Things got worse when the drawings he brought fell to the ground. However, no one noticed except for a girl named Haze. Haze stayed and introduced herself to Naoto. However, Naoto didn't know that this girl would make his life miserable. Haze often mocked the manga Naoto drew, causing him to start doubting his own work. The taunts were so painful that Naoto cried. To further humiliate him, Haze wiped his tears before leaving. Naoto didn't sleep all night, hoping things would get better the next day. However, reality had a different plan. When Naoto went to the art club, Haze appeared again, this time with a different appearance. Naoto handed her the handkerchief he used the previous day and asked her to leave him alone. Naoto entered the art club hoping to find peace. However, Haze also came in and started walking around the room. Seeing Naoto drawing, Haze told him to draw her. Naoto refused because he didn't like drawing people. Haze then suggested that Naoto draw her like Jack drew Rose in the movie Titanic. Naoto remembered that he had never looked into a woman's eyes, which made him feel awkward. Finally, Naoto agreed to draw Haze in a normal way. While drawing, Naoto didn't know where to look. Even so, Naoto managed to finish his drawing, although Haze didn't like it much, thinking it was too basic, even though the drawing was actually good. In return, Haze offered a reward to Naoto and asked him to close his eyes. Naoto thought Haze was going to kiss him, but Haze just teased him again. As they left, Haze continued to tease him. However, this time Haze went too far and pushed Naoto into a fountain. Haze apologized, feeling that her actions had been too much. The most surprising thing was that Naoto said nothing or defended himself. When Haze asked why, Naoto didn't give an answer. From here we see that Naoto had suffered since childhood and the only way he learned to deal with such situations was to bow his head and let it pass. The next day, Naoto was in the art club as usual, but this time Haze was with him. During lunch, Naoto was ready to read his manga, but Haze came and realized that Naoto was hiding something. After investigating, Haze found the manga, which turned out to be about vampires. Haze didn't miss the opportunity to tease him, saying that in the story, Naoto would be the cowardly character running away from the vampires. It was clear that Naoto had never cooked with a girl before, if you catch my drift. Naoto stated that he couldn't tell if he had cooked with someone or not, but Haze insisted that they could cook together if Naoto wanted. As everything was about to start, Haze smelled garlic from Naoto, who was eating garlic bread, and moved away from him. However, when Naoto got up, he stumbled and ended up colliding with Haze. As they walked home, Haze teased him about the incident and asked if she could meet his Titan again. But, as usual, it was just a joke from Haze. The next day, things got more intense when Haze created a very daring game. This game involved biting each other, and if Naoto guessed correctly, he would get a ticket that he could use when Haze bothered him and he wanted her to stop. The game began, and Haze was the first to take her turn, hitting the target with Olympic-level precision. This scene was so horrifying that it almost made me stop watching the anime. When it was Naoto's turn, Haze thought he wouldn't have the courage, but Naoto accepted it. However, when it was his turn, Haze became very nervous and stopped the game, telling Naoto that she had to meet a friend and then left. Later, Naoto went to a cafe far from school, hoping to find some peace. However, the situation became more interesting when Haze entered the cafe with her friend and two boys. Naoto's only option was to hide and eavesdrop on the conversation between the two boys, who were clearly trying to flirt with Haze. Naoto thought Haze would treat them the same way she treated him and humiliate them, but that didn't happen. Haze behaved very seriously, causing one of the boys to leave, and the same happened with the second boy. Haze gave them an intimidating sharp look, making the other boy leave as well. This confused Naoto greatly because he thought Haze only mocked him or laughed with him, showing her true personality. Maybe Haze liked him. The next day, when Haze arrived, she asked Naoto to draw her because she wanted to be his model. However, Naoto reminded her that he didn't like drawing people. Haze then used her secret weapon, waking up Naoto's Titan. She tricked him and started taking off her clothes, but it turned out to be a joke as she was wearing a swimsuit underneath. Yes, it was all bait. As they left school, it started to rain, so they had to find shelter. Because of the rain, their clothes began to turn transparent. Hayes told Naoto not to dare look at her because of this, but Naoto thought it was another lie. However, when Naoto turned around, he realized that this time Hayes was telling the truth, making him blush like a tomato. Hayes took advantage of this situation to continue teasing him, although not for long, as the storm grew stronger, and they knew they would get sick if they stayed any longer. Hayes then suggested they go to her house because it was very close to the school. Once there, Naoto felt scared because he imagined Hayes's parents would have the same character as her, making him worry he would be mocked. However, Hayes assured him that she was home alone. Later, Hayes suggested they spend their time doing something with their fingers, meaning playing video games. Before they started, Hayes warned Naoto that she was very skilled at playing. However, Hayes was surprised because, besides being an otaku, Naoto was also a master gamer, winning all the games they played. This made Hayes angry, so she started using forbidden techniques to try to beat him. Nevertheless, they both had fun the entire afternoon. The next day, during lunch, Naoto looked for a place to sit, but all the seats were taken until he saw Hayes in the distance inviting him to sit with her and her friends. When our friend sat down, Gaimo and Yoshi started teasing him, saying that Naoto was Hayes' boyfriend, and Hayes decided to join in the fun. Over time, when Yoshi tried to touch Naoto's hair, Hayes activated her magic powers and firmly told Yoshi not to touch him because Naoto was hers. Our friend who marked her territory, Gaimo, took advantage of the situation and told Naoto that he was a coward who needed a woman to defend him. This statement made Hayes very angry, and she said that although they often teased him, what Gaimo said had crossed the line. However, deep down, Naoto thought Gaimo was right. Later, in the art club, Hayes criticized Naoto for not defending himself from others' treatment, making her reluctant to teach him. Hayes said that when someone mocks Naoto, he should fight back, so they did a test. Hayes started insulting him a lot and very painfully, almost making Naoto cry. Seeing this, Hayes felt bad, but suddenly her face changed. Naoto tested what Hayes had taught him and pushed her, but once again Hayes placed her hand in the wrong place. Hayes blushed, but something was wrong, so she told him to aim correctly next time. The next day, Naoto finally managed to eat lunch alone peacefully, but it didn't last long because Hayes' friends came with a rather obscene game. The girls wondered if someone like Naoto had ever touched something similar to a melon, so one of them volunteered. However, our friend didn't want to do it because Naoto wasn't that kind of person. Although Naoto tried to escape, he was so physically weak that the girls easily stopped him and forced him to touch Gaimo's hand. Naoto felt bad about what he had just done, but the girls said that he didn't touch anything inappropriate. Once again, Naoto fell for a woman's lie, but the fun didn't last long because Hayes arrived and asked what they were doing with her boyfriend. Naoto was hers alone. Hayes was upset because she thought everything that happened was real, but when Naoto explained that it was just a joke, she calmed down and teased him again, this time saying that she bought some very strange rolls, and if Naoto wanted them, he had to guess where the rolls were. Naoto became serious because he really wanted the rolls, but what happened was that he ended up touching Hayes' prize or punishment. The next day, Hayes kept telling Naoto that instead of drawing boring objects like bananas or apples, he should draw her. Due to her insistence, Naoto agreed, but when it was time to draw, Hayes didn't show up, so Naoto started watching a baseball game. However, his work didn't last long because Hayes arrived with a chair stolen from another club. Seeing Naoto watching the game, Hayes said that he must be envious of the team captain because Naoto was the opposite, and everyone praised him. Naoto said that maybe Hayes was right, but he never wanted praise from others. Hayes said that if Naoto wanted to receive praise, he should first give it, so they started practicing. Naoto tried to think of compliments for Hayes, but he really didn't have any because she had more flaws than qualities. So, Naoto played it safe and said that her hair was beautiful, and so was her voice, and despite all that, he liked her. However, when it was her turn, Hayes started praising Naoto while joking. Naoto knew that if Hayes let it go, the day would be long, so he changed the subject and said he would draw her. Hayes started suggesting poses he could draw her in, but Naoto struggled, and from all his efforts, Hayes finally fell asleep, and surprisingly, this helped Naoto. In the calm, Naoto drew her, and when Hayes woke up and saw the drawing, she liked it very much, so she promised to give him a reward. Naoto closed his eyes, but he no longer expected a kiss, yet he felt something on his lips, and this time it felt luxurious. The next day, Hayes realized that Naoto was quite sensitive, and although he tried to say otherwise, when she ran towards him, Naoto couldn't stand it. A few seconds later, Hayes told him that everyone laughed in amusement, but she said that she didn't tickle, and if Naoto wanted, he could check it, even wearing a swimsuit to lure him. Hayes thought Naoto's cowardice wouldn't let him do it, but instead, Naoto took on the character and was ready to tickle her. However, this time Hayes said it was all just a joke. On another day, when Naoto was doing what he liked, Hayes showed a video where they were shearing sheep. When she saw Naoto's hair, she didn't hesitate to say that she wanted to cut it. However, Naoto told her that when they cut it, they didn't use a machine but scissors. To be able to do it, Hayes said she would give him an amazing scissor cut. But at that moment, she received a call from her friends informing her of an emergency, but all of this was a trap for the girls to be alone with Naoto. When they saw the machine, they immediately wanted to cut his hair. However, Naoto did everything he could to prevent this from happening because he promised Hayes that she would cut his hair. Outside, Hayes heard all the noise and decided to go see, finding her friends with the hair clipper, so she chased them away. In the end, they both had fun, and Naoto got a free haircut. A few days later, the climate change arrived in another anime, and to survive the extreme heat, Hayes wanted to go to an ice cream shop in town. However, when they arrived, they saw a long line because the ice cream shop was promoted on TikTok. To avoid waiting too long, Naoto suggested going to the supermarket to buy ice cream, but Hayes didn't want to because she specifically wanted that ice cream, no matter how hot it was. However, saying it was one thing, and doing it while waiting in line was another. The heat was such that Hayes started to feel dizzy and almost fainted. Because of this, Naoto took her to the shade and bought her a drink, and as a reward, Hayes agreed to go to the supermarket and buy ice cream. As the holidays approached, Hayes asked for Naoto's phone number. Naoto gave it to her but warned that he was very boring when talking on the phone. However, Hayes only wanted the number to send emojis when she thought Naoto was thinking about her. After Hayes left, Naoto realized that he would drink from Hayes's used bottle, meaning they would have an indirect kiss. But as Naoto was about to drink, Hayes sent a sticker message because she was watching him. When night came and Naoto fell asleep, he dreamed of being in an icy sky, where a witch chose him because of his virgin nature and offered him to her allies. In reality, they turned into his enemies. Naoto woke up and realized that everyone in the place was watching him. Worse yet, the girls came, and due to bad luck, the poor Naoto forgot to bring his sketchbook when he left. Hayes took the book and realized that Naoto was the furry creature always drawing her, so she ran to chase and tease him. Naoto couldn't do much and eventually, Hayes kept his notebook. Summer vacation arrived, and Naoto enjoyed watching TV. However, he received a call from Hayes inviting him to go to the beach. Although he initially refused, they eventually convinced him. On the way to the beach, his friends started teasing him because they didn't expect an otaku to leave his house. At the beach, when the girls wore their swimsuits, Naoto couldn't help but look at Gamo's appearance, so the others called him a perpetrator. Naoto then went to a place where he could find peace. However, Hayes appeared and said she would apply sunscreen on him. Naoto refused, saying that only couples do that, and they weren't a couple, which made Hayes angry and put the sunscreen on the road. After so many chemicals on his body, Naoto could float. Everyone started swimming, playing, and eating, although it was initially difficult for Naoto. However, he enjoyed the trip at the end of the day. A few days passed, and as usual in anime, the summer festival arrived. Naoto thought Hayes would force him to go with her, but the whole night passed without any messages from her. Naoto then thought of inviting her but concluded that she would only mock him. Still, Naoto went to the festival to take a walk but met Gamo and Yoshi. Naoto tried to escape but knew it was impossible, and the girls ended up putting a dog leash on him. This made him angry, and Hayes also got angry because the girls sent her a photo. Hayes ran and asked them to return her dog, but they said they would return him if she won the match. Hayes accepted, but in the end, she lost. However, she got a plush doll that Yoshi liked, so they finally returned the boy. Alone, the kids walked around. When Hayes saw all the couples holding hands, she joked with Naoto, saying he didn't have the courage to hold her hand, and she was right because even though Naoto thought about it, he didn't have enough courage. The fireworks were about to start, but when they went to see the line to watch them, it was very long. At that moment, Naoto grabbed Hei's hand and stated that he would take her to a place he knew since childhood, where they could watch the fireworks perfectly. However, Hei immediately doubted Naoto's intentions, thinking that he had other motives and wanted to do something different. This time, Naoto, who was starting to get tired of always being the target of teasing, gathered the courage and asked Hei to explain in detail what she was actually talking about. Hei, inexperienced in such situations, fell silent without being able to say a word. At that moment, the fireworks began to light up the night sky. In the shimmering light, they realized that some couples were in the same place. Thus, they decided to find a quieter location to enjoy the beauty of the fireworks. At the end of the festival, Hei expressed her desire to wear a yukata on the next occasion. To fulfill that wish, Naoto promised that next year, when they returned to the festival, he would wear a yukata. When summer ended and everyone returned to school, Naoto saw Hei with her group of friends. Naoto wanted to greet her, but before he could, two people came and started teasing Hei, making her angry. As Naoto was about to leave, he accidentally stepped on a tree branch, drawing everyone's attention around. Gamo asked what Naoto wanted, and the kids started teasing him because of his shyness. However, this time, Naoto didn't let it happen. He gathered the courage and asked Hei to go home with him. Hei happily accepted his invitation. A few days later, Hei reminded Naoto that he was too skinny and needed to exercise. Although suggested to exercise, Naoto refused because he felt it was too exhausting. However, Hei had an idea to help him improve his fitness. She asked Naoto to crawl and hold her weight for as long as possible. While they were exercising, some girls saw them but acted as if they saw nothing, while Naoto spent the night playing games. As a result, Naoto got very bad grades, and if it continued, he could fail this year. To prevent that from happening, Hei told him that if he repeated the year, she would become his classmate and spend all day teasing him. Although Naoto felt embarrassed about this, he was happy with their togetherness. However, there was another scenario that worried Naoto. Hei's friends would also become his classmates, making it hard for him to imagine a worse nightmare than that. To avoid that, Naoto started studying diligently, and by the end of the semester, he managed to get very good grades. Although successful, this made Hei angry because Naoto avoided her. One day, when Hei went to the art club, she heard a strange noise and suspected that Naoto was doing something with another girl. However, when Hei investigated, it turned out that Naoto was hit by a splinter, and the other girls were helping him. Later, Hei felt jealous because Naoto was very kind to her friend named Sakura, and Naoto asked to be treated well like a knight. As a result, Hei ended up carrying both of their backpacks. However, Naoto didn't give up and challenged Hei again. This time, Naoto let himself be defeated by Hei, who said that Naoto would carry her backpack instead. Hei started teasing him, saying that Naoto might be the first guy to carry her, making her run away. At night, Hei sent a message to Naoto and started teasing him by saying she was taking a bath. Unknowingly, Hei accidentally activated a video call, allowing Naoto to see her in her birthday suit. When Hei realized this, it was too late, and she let out a scream that could be heard up to the sky. Naoto stated that he didn't see anything, but Hei said that he didn't really care, when in fact it was different. The next morning, Naoto was frustrated by Hei and his friends' behavior. So, Naoto asked them what they were doing there, given that they were always in the dining room. The girls explained that there was a group of people who were very noisy, and despite being asked to be quiet, they would not. The girls' decision to end the group from the inside surprised Naoto, as he didn't expect them to just give up, but instead, they planned to do just that. They send Sakura to charm everyone, so that in the end they will all fight with Sakura. The plan works, but ends badly when one of them defeats Sakura, making her follow Sakura everywhere. Because of this, the girl asks Naoto to pretend to be her boyfriend so that the strange man will leave, although this is obviously unpleasant for the girls. In the end, however, Naoto accepted. The next day, when the promised date arrived, Naoto was so nervous that he didn't know what to do or say. Sakura simply told him to go with the flow and, if possible, kiss her, but the plan was foiled when Hei followed them. Seeing that the two have good chemistry, Hei decides to end the matter with his own actions. Hei catches the strange man and makes him apologize to Sakura and vow not to follow him again. When the date ends, Hei makes fun of Naoto for ruining his first date. However, Naoto told him that it didn't matter, as Naoto was relieved that it was over. The next day, as the two go to school, Hayes tells him that if Naoto doesn't want to see his selfies, something he doesn't understand at first. However, then Naoto realizes that Hayes is talking about selfies, and his mind starts imagining things, such as what kind of selfie Hayes meant, but in reality, it was a chicken they named. Hayes teases him again, but as compensation, Hayes will give him some chicken. In physical education class, the girls see how pathetic Naoto's physical condition is. All of his classmates outweigh his condition, and Hayes doesn't like him at all. After class, Hayes tells him that Hayes will train him himself to stop being lazy, although Naoto says that it's not his forte, as Naoto would rather draw than run. Nonetheless, Hayes managed to convince him, and Hayes told him to get rid of his loser attitude. On the weekend, their training began, and Naoto initially had many doubts about it. But all those thoughts disappeared the moment Naoto saw Hayes in gym clothes. Even though Naoto was very out of shape, Naoto tried to do it. This made him get tired faster, and when Hayes saw him like that, Hayes said that Naoto was like an ant, and even a child could do better. In fact, Naoto was not an ant but a worm, and the insult had an effect on Naoto, so Naoto decided to keep running. In the end, Naoto managed to do it, and after running, it was time to stretch. Although Yushiro saw them stretching, Hayes only invited Yushiro to join in the stretching. A few days later, Naoto began to wonder who Naoto could draw. However, what Naoto didn't know was that Hayes was listening to him. Hayes told him that Hayes would give him the privilege of having him as a model. However, our friend suddenly refused, because this time Naoto wanted to draw a boy. When Naoto saw Hayes, Naoto couldn't help but shake his hands. Nonetheless, Hayes showed him one of the furry drawings he made and asked if his hands were shaking when Naoto made the drawing. Cornered, Naoto finally agrees to draw for the art festival, on one condition, that Hayes must dress as in the drawing. Naoto thought that this way, Hayes would stop bothering him since it was impossible for him to get the clothes. However, the next day, Hayes arrived at the venue with the clothes. When they came face to face, both of them couldn't help but blush, even more so when Naoto said that Hayes looked very pretty. The time for drawing began, and while Naoto did so, the other girls planned their activities for the day of the festival. Hayes would help the swimming club sell ramen. Gaimo and Yushiro will make a haunted house, and Sakura will help the computer group because Sakura finally made amends with them. When Hayes asks Naoto what Naoto did last year, Naoto goes into his memories and we see that Naoto is not only a club member, but also a famous club president. However, since the other members were third-year students, they couldn't spend much time in the club due to university entrance exams. Therefore, since the previous year, the president of the student council has handed over the club to Naoto. And now, in the present, Naoto tells them that they will be holding an exhibition this year, something that turns out to be very boring for the girls, so they propose other activities. However, in all of these activities, Naoto ended up being the subject of ridicule. While everyone was talking, Naoto heard someone approaching and knew very well whose footsteps it was. So, Naoto asked the girls to hide for a moment because something dangerous was approaching. And sure enough, someone opened the door. The student council president, whose name was Sana, came in. Sana came to check everything was going well for the festival. But besides that, they have other things to talk about because the council has her attention and tells her that the art club has become a den of bad boys. And although Naoto tries to hide the truth, everything in the place says otherwise. That's why Sana decided to expel him. Naoto didn't know what to say, even Naoto couldn't speak. Hayes wasn't afraid of Sana, and told him to his face that Sana was selfish. First, Sana let Naoto take charge, leaving all the responsibility to him, and then after Naoto finished, Sana kicked him out. For this, Sana told him that Naoto wasn't really interested in art. But Hayes knew very well that this was not true because Hayes had seen with his own eyes that the boy was always drawing, wherever Naoto went. Hayes and the girls defend Naoto, then Sana offers him a choice. Every year, the students vote to choose the best exhibition. If Naoto beats him, his expulsion will be lifted. Without much thought, Hayes accepts, even though Naoto has to do it. However, when it comes to planning how to defeat Sana, Naoto isn't too sure Naoto can win. In fact, Naoto believes Naoto has no chance because Sana's image is on a different level. Sana had won many awards and had even competed against college students. The difference between them was significant, which made the girls curious because they didn't understand what the difference was. Naoto took out one of Sana's paintings, and we could tell that it was slightly exposed. Seeing this, Naoto felt that he had no chance. Even so, Naoto remains confident that Naoto can win, especially since Hayes will be the model. Geimo told them that they were in trouble because compared to Sana, Hayes didn't have much material to draw. But Naoto says that Hayes also has beautiful things, but Naoto doesn't know how to capture them in a painting, so Hayes helps him by giving him ideas, doing cosplay, and many other things. But nothing worked. Naoto has an artistic block, and Naoto thinks that if Naoto loses, not only Naoto will be harmed but also Hayes because Hayes will be the model. So Naoto asked everyone to leave. This time, Naoto will focus on drawing alone, which makes Hayes angry, and Hayes tells him that if Sana is so important to him, Naoto should ask her to be his model. Later, Naoto starts painting, but the things Naoto used to paint, what to expect, Sana is behind him. Sana told him that what he was drawing had no soul, and Naoto forgot what the painting was supposed to represent was love. Without love, a painting is just a painting. The paintings have no meaning, no purpose. So if he wanted to defeat him, Naoto had to find the love that Naoto didn't have. Everything was fine up until this point. But problems arise when Hayes arrives to see how Naoto is doing, and when Hayes sees Sana, Hayes misunderstands the situation and runs away. Here we realize that Sana is not a bad person. In fact, Sana encourages Naoto to pursue Hayes. Naoto chases Hayes all over the school until Naoto finds him and tells him that Naoto wants Hayes to be his model. Hayes asks him why Naoto wants Hayes to be his model, and Naoto finally starts to say something and says that Hayes is the most beautiful girl Naoto knows, and that's why Naoto wants Hayes to be his model. This made them both blush, and due to nerves, they ended up falling into the water. Although, in the end, it wasn't bad because it helped the two of them resolve their differences, and Hayes came back to being himself, which I don't know if it was good or bad. Finally, the paintings were ready and Naoto named it A Day in the Life of Hayes. All the girls liked it, especially Hayes, so Hayes thought that Naoto had a chance to win. But to be sure, they decide to look at some of the works that Sana is going to present, and when they see them, they realize that they are in serious trouble. So, they have to find something extra, and who better for that than the friends? On the day of the exhibition, both Sana and Naoto presented their works. But what was unexpected was that Naoto started to become popular with the girls, and of course, Hayes didn't like this at all. So at lunch, Hayes tells him, but Naoto tells him that everyone praises his paintings because Hayes is in them, and that's why they're beautiful. Naoto is learning the art of complimenting. They enjoy lunch together, but when they return to the competition, they realize that the school committee has suspended Sana's exhibition. The reason was that it was too revealing, and that it shouldn't be done at school. Naoto is not happy about this and does not hesitate to defend her. Naoto told the board members that Sana was a great artist. Perhaps her work was not for everyone, but that did not diminish its value. Besides, Sana had taught that we should paint what we like the most, in her case, Hayes. The council members were still not too convinced, but Hayes also told them that for him, even Sana's paintings were good. Besides, it was true that many people looked at the painting not just for art, but many people also looked at it professionally, unlike what they thought. With this, the children managed to allow Sana to exhibit her painting and also win the competition. Sana thanked them and cancelled Naoto's expulsion. However, the story doesn't end there. The girls have another punishment for Sana, forcing her to do cosplay and sell cookies. Ironically, these endeavors make them millionaires. When Sana sees Naoto's paintings, she recognizes that they are amazing. Although not perfect, the paintings were clearly made with love, making both of them feel embarrassed. Moments later, the girls came to tell them that the concert was about to start, and everyone moved towards the concert venue. A few days later, Naoto thought of a manga he had read where the situation was somewhat similar to his life. The girl he likes flirts with him, and remembering that, Hayes tells him that Hayes also read that manga and felt that the main character was very similar to him. However, Naoto explains that the female character in the manga was the worst thing Naoto could imagine, because now Hayes says that Hayes will become like the female character in the manga. Hayes even invites him to demonstrate the scene where the main character licks the water off the girl's shoes. A surprising incident occurred when water actually fell into Hayes' shoes, so Naoto, without thinking, bent down to clean his shoes. Although the situation was awkward, the act showed a bit of bravery on Naoto's part. The next day, Naoto saw Hayes going to school and he was confused whether to follow him or not, because Naoto knew that if Naoto went, Hayes would most likely tease him along the way. However, that situation didn't happen because Naoto was already in front of Hayes, and as Naoto expected, Hayes teased him by saying that Naoto was spying on Hayes. To help Naoto develop his social skills, Hayes gives him some suggestions on how to greet others. Although they were a bit rude, Naoto thought that patting heads was a good idea, but when Naoto was about to do it, Naoto tripped and almost fell. Luckily, the other girls came and saved him. Later, the girls asked if they would eat together after school, and Naoto happily accepted. At school, while Naoto is trying to concentrate on her painting, Hayes feels cold, so Hayes promises to wear stockings the next day. When Hayes sees that Naoto is silent, Hayes teases by saying that Naoto is probably thinking about his legs. Taking advantage of the situation, Hayes invited Nito to teach him how to draw. Unexpectedly, Naoto agreed. Hayes gets nervous and doesn't dare to do it, saying that Hayes will do it someday. When they went to the restaurant, Naoto thought he was just invited to pay the bill, but they actually invited him as a thank you because Naoto was the one who contributed the most to the school festival. This time, they treated him like a king and even made strange food combinations that Naoto liked. A few days later, Sana gives Naoto a ticket to the zoo as a gift because Naoto lost his inspiration. Although nervous, Naoto accepted the invitation, and the two of them spent a pleasant time together. In a few days, because Hayes left his cell phone in the art room, so Naoto will return it. However, when looking for it, Naoto couldn't find it anywhere, and Naoto didn't know where the classroom was either. Luckily, another girl tells him, but now the problem is that Naoto meets Hayes' friends, and he knows if they see him, they'll start flirting with him. So, Naoto makes the difficult decision to hide in the classroom bookshelf. Unfortunately, Hayes arrives with his friends, and one of them confesses that Sakura has a boyfriend. Hayes' friends ask Sakura what they like in a guy, and when it's Hayes' turn, Hayes says that the only thing that matters is that the two are harmonious and have fun moments together. These words motivate Naoto because there is a possibility that Hayes likes him. But Naoto can't contain his excitement, so Naoto ends up making a little noise. Hayes went to the bookshelf and found it, but when Naoto gave him his cell phone, Naoto realized that Hayes had no bad intentions. Hayes helps him escape without anyone else noticing, but now Hayes knows Naoto heard everything he said, so Naoto just runs away. Since the school marathon race is coming up, Hayes practices a little so as not to disappoint his teacher. However, while running, he hurt his ankle, although the next day, everything seemed fine. When the marathon starts, Naoto runs at his own pace, but not for long because the girls come to cheer for Naoto since Naoto has to enter first. But then Sana shows up dressed in yesterday's cosplay and passes them in a flash. All the girls encourage Naoto so that Naoto can beat Sana, but unfortunately, they are separated by a traffic light. Now it's just Hayes and Naoto, but Naoto's ankle isn't strong anymore, so Hayes helps him run. But Hayes realized that they wouldn't be able to finish and told him to get on his back so Hayes could carry him to the finish line. At first, this idea didn't seem too good to Naoto, but Hayes eventually convinced him that the little dream could carry quite a light load, if only for a little while. However, the power of friendship arrived, and together, the group managed to catch up with Sana. With one last attempt, they make it through, though they don't win anything because a teacher tells them that you can't carry anyone. At least, no one is short of laughs. While Naoto is in the art room, Naoto realizes that Hayes isn't around and is a little worried about Hayes. So when Naoto saw his friends, Naoto asked them what was going on with Hayes, and they said that Hayes was sick. They also took the opportunity to give him the missed study materials so that Naoto could take them to Hayes, which Naoto did. However, when Naoto arrives at Hayes' house, no one answers, so Naoto decides to go in, thinking maybe Hayes fainted. This is not a good idea because Hayes' sister Masaki arrives. Naoto never thought that he would finally receive the victory in playing the game, but without asking any strange questions, just wanted to know Hayes' full name. When Hayes is about to tell him, Hayes instead states that Naoto will find out on his own. Their plans are interrupted when Masaki shows up with a picture of little Hayes and reveals his full name. As the day ends, Hayes tells Naoto to get ready to be teased again the next day. The incident does happen, but this time Hayes seems more nervous around Naoto, even thinking about how to greet him. Seeing on the internet that men like to be held by their shirt sleeves, Hayes tried that too. However, Naoto didn't like it much and resisted, accidentally holding hands while the other girls watched. A few days later, Naoto wakes up sick, deciding not to go to school, something Hayes doesn't know about. Hayes felt guilty for possibly missing his cold hours, and Naoto lay down on the couch to sleep, but was interrupted by the doorbell that kept ringing. When Naoto went to see who was coming, Naoto was surprised by the arrival of Hayes, who confessed that he felt guilty that Hayes was home alone, so Naoto came to keep him company. Although Naoto said that Hayes shouldn't come in, Hayes insisted because he thought he was immune because Naoto gave him the flu. When Naoto was about to lie down again, Hayes said that if Naoto did so, Naoto would get sicker. Finally, Hayes took Naoto to the bedroom, thinking of how to take his temperature. Hayes finally used his small forehead to measure Naoto's body temperature, while teasing him by saying that Naoto had a high fever. Although it started out as a fad, Hayes actually cared about Naoto and took care of him throughout the afternoon. While Naoto takes care of him, Naoto dreams of a future with Hayes. When Naoto wakes up, Naoto realizes that his dream came true. However, Naoto falls asleep again. Hayes thought Naoto was just pretending to sleep, so Hayes told him that if Naoto woke up, Hayes would give him a kiss. However, Naoto was already fast asleep. At that moment, Naoto's mother came, so Hayes left. The next morning, when Naoto woke up, his mother asked about the sweet girl who accompanied him, and Naoto replied that Hayes was just a friend. Christmas is around the corner, so Hayes asks Misaki what gift Hayes can give Naoto. Misaki first suggests something edible, but then says that it's better to give him a gift that can be used more than once. While they are at school, Hayes' friends tell him what they are going to do for Christmas because there are obviously two groups, those who are dating and those who are not. They both replied that they were both single. So, Maki suggests that they go to karaoke. Naoto said that Naoto had to finish a painting, and Hayes also took the opportunity to go out with him for the whole day. Hayes thinks of a place to give the gift he bought for Naoto, but Hayes doesn't want to do it in public so as not to ruin Hayes' reputation. However, when the two of them hide on the school roof to avoid the teacher, they end up in a place full of couples instead. However, Naoto doesn't want to keep and gives his gift at that place, which strangely enough is the same gift Naoto was going to give Hayes, a scarf. As the new year approaches, Hayes calls Naoto to ask what Naoto plans to do on that day, or if Naoto plans to stay like a worm. Hayes suggested they go to the shrine, although Hayes didn't say it literally, just suggested it. When Naoto arrives at the temple, Naoto is surprised to see Hayes dressed formally. Hayes says that he got a job there, so he'll give him a special tour. However, since he's not the only person there, Naoto tells Hayes that Naoto will wait because Naoto has something to tell Hayes, and as usual, Hayes takes the opportunity to tease him. After Naoto finished, Naoto told Hayes what Naoto wanted to say was for Hayes to accompany him to the shrine. They both make requests, and Hayes says that Hayes hopes they get married, obviously just to tease him. Despite still feeling scared, in the next lesson, Naoto is still not good at skiing and makes the girls laugh at him. Back at school, Sana comes to tell Naoto that Naoto has been accepted into the University of Arts, news that Naoto is very happy about. Sana also states that Sana really appreciates the help given by Hayes in Naoto's progress. For a few days, Naoto couldn't concentrate, and that's when Hayes showed up and saw that Naoto didn't have much inspiration. Naoto proposed to be his model again, and Hayes agreed. However, this time Hayes went all out and wore a swimsuit because he felt his uniform was boring. Although Naoto was getting nervous seeing him like that, Naoto agreed to draw Hayes like that. When they take a break from drawing, Nito takes the opportunity to tell him that he will be joining the judo club, which pleases Naoto because then he will be able to beat Orihara. Although Naoto reminds Hayes about the kiss bet, Naoto isn't too sure about it, which makes Hayes angry because Hayes thinks Naoto doesn't want to kiss him. For a few days, Naoto couldn't concentrate, and that's when Hayes showed up and saw that Naoto didn't have much inspiration. Naoto proposed to be his model again, and Hayes agreed. However, this time Hayes went all out and wore a swimsuit because he felt his uniform was boring. Although Naoto was getting nervous seeing him like that, Naoto agreed to draw Hayes like that. When they take a break from drawing, Nito takes the opportunity to tell him that he will be joining the judo club, which pleases Naoto because then he will be able to beat Orihara. Although Naoto reminds Hayes about the kiss bet, Naoto isn't too sure about it, which makes Hayes angry because Hayes thinks Naoto doesn't want to kiss him. However, the truth is the opposite. Naoto wants to do it, but doesn't want to do it because of the bet. Hayes asked if Naoto wanted to kiss him right then and there, but that wasn't possible because a student named Hannah showed up. Hannah came looking for Naoto, which made Hayes jealous. Naoto explains that Naoto and Hana met when Hana was in middle school, and Hana taught him how to draw and paint, so Hana loves and respects him very much. Seeing them so close, Hana asks if they are dating, but Hayes says that they are not. When Naoto also says that they are not dating, Hana gets angry and asks Hayes what he really wants. Hayes does everything he can to prevent Hana from joining the art club and tells her that if she does, she'll become weird like Naoto. However, Hana says that that's what Hana wants, to be like her teacher. Gaimo also shows up because Gaimo is there to take Hayes to practice. However, Hayes doesn't want to go because it would leave Naoto alone with Hana. When Hana learns that Naoto won't have a model anymore, Hana offers herself. When the two are alone, Hana tells Naoto that her paintings have become more colorful, and Hana thinks it's because Naoto might see her as a goddess. However, Naoto corrects her and tells her that if Hana said that, Naoto would become a demon. On the other hand, Hayes can't concentrate knowing Naoto is with another girl. Maki tells him that Hayes is very jealous, and although Hayes denies it, all the girls say that it's true. Maki asks what Hayes would choose, sports or love, but since it's Hayes, Hayes says both. Back with Hana, Hana helps Naoto and says that the spark of her love can't stop burning. So Naoto should move forward with Hayes, and Hana suggests asking him out on a date.